A Team of Their Own, How an International Sisterhood Made Olympic History is now out, and author Seth Berkman is here to share more about the book and tell the amazing story of the 2018 Korean Women's Olympic Hockey Team. Seth is joining us along with AJ Malesko, of course. Seth, this is such a fascinating story. I'd like to just dive right into what made this team special and why did you want to cover this?
What most people will remember is how this was the first Olympic team to feature athletes from North Korea and South Korea. But even before that happened, the team had a series of what they called import players, who are essentially Korean Americans, Korean Canadians who earned citizenship to play for South Korea's first Olympic hockey team.
I was there. I witnessed this firsthand as a broadcaster at the 2018 Olympics. There were so many fascinating things about the story, and watching it unfold was incredible. But was there one aspect of this story that surprised you the most?
It was, when the North Koreans first came onto the team, there were these icy walls between the two. The South Koreans and the imports didn't know if anything they were told was being real or propaganda. So one day at lunch, they're just feeling each other out in a way. And one of the North Koreans brings up the topic of ice cream. And she's like, in Pyeongchang, we have 3 different ice cream flavors at our ice cream shops. And Randy Griffin, an import player who went to Harvard, she kind of quips, oh, if we ever take them to Baskin Robbins, they're going to defect right away. So eventually the teams were able to loosen up, make little jokes and eventually become one team. But at first it was very much so, oh my God, they're from North Korea. How are we going to break down these walls between us?
One thing that we were chatting about, I think the fans at home might think if you're a journalist and you want to go cover the Olympics, it's easy. But for you, that wasn't the case. I mean, you had to buy tickets to games to get access to these games and also to continue following this story.
Right. For media, it takes about 2.5 year process before the games to get credentialed. So I only started writing this book about a year before the Olympics. So in terms of actually attending the Korean team's games, I had to search for tickets, and all the tickets were sold out. So you would go on, find secondary markets on Korean websites, and I don't speak Korean or read Korean, so it was Google translating these websites to try and find tickets. One game actually, a ticket that I bought for the second game that Korea played against Sweden, my seat was amongst the group of North Korean cheerleaders that were at the game. So I'm sitting there about 20 minutes before face-off and no one's sitting around me. And I think this is kind of curious. Then just 40, 50 North Korean cheerleaders kind of march in and sit all around me. And I'm like, no one has ever been this close to this many people from North Korea. A few people get this chance, and now I'm watching this game amongst them as they're doing their coordinated cheers, and it was just surreal.
Well, and that North Korean cheerleading squad was such an interesting story, being there, witnessing it firsthand, how in unison they were and how they came in right at the last minute. But going back to that very first game that they played against Switzerland, I got to the rink much earlier than the fans did, and I remember hearing and seeing the video footage that we had at NBC of the throngs of people and the protesters.
Right.
Were you in that, or were you already in the arena?
I was outside, and so I was actually with one of the players' parents because they had tickets that they had to give to another import player. It was Marissa and Hannah Brandt's parents, and so they were waiting for them. And the Brandt parents were trying to snake their way through these protesters. They had no idea where to go. We finally caught up with them, but it was surreal. You had people on one side of the street in favor of the team, then people on the other side of the street shouting at them with megaphones, denouncing the team, basically. So you had all this going on outside, and then inside the arena, not only did you have the cheerleaders, but the president of South Korea was there. You had state officials from North Korea, so everybody was focused on this circus-like atmosphere that was going around this hockey game.
Seth, you mentioned the Brandts, and that was really one of the interesting aspects, and I know the broadcast also covered it. It's exciting if you have an opportunity to go to the Olympics and you have a sibling that's playing the same sport. It doesn't happen often that you're playing for 2 different teams, 2 different countries.
Right. And so those who follow women's hockey and international hockey knew that Hannah Brandt was a strong candidate to make the 2018 U.S. women's hockey team. When South Korea kind of recruited Marissa, this just came as a shock not only to their family but everyone that knew them. And a lot of people just really saw it as Marissa kind of getting her chance. The spotlight would be on Marissa because in the women's hockey community, Hannah Brandt has won multiple national championships in college. She's a top player. And then Marissa being able to go to the Olympics with her sister was something I think a lot of people never thought would happen.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story, and it makes you smile to have that experience. And AJ, it's bigger than hockey.
It is, and I go back to us covering it as Americans, knowing what we hear in the press, and those first couple games where you really have that intersection of politics, of sport, and the Olympic ideals that were there. Have you seen in the year and a half or so since these Olympic Games, has this unified team done anything to promote peace in the Korean Peninsula?
I think you even saw that right after the games. The South Korean players told me some stories where right after their games in Hedned, people like Ilya Kovalchuk, who played for the Russian team at the Olympics, Pavel Datsuk, they saw them around the Olympic Village and came over and wanted pictures taken with them. And one of the players actually gave them a sign stick because they saw this symbolism that they were projecting, and they appreciated that. In terms of kind of the bigger picture in Korea, they have made more of these unified teams after the Olympics. There's talk even in 2032 of North and South Korea putting in a joint bid to host the Olympic Games. So this kind of sports promotion through politics is still going on, and you do see, incremental progress because of this unified team from 2018.
It's such an interesting story. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about it. If you would like to read the book, please go online. Make sure you can get it, Seth. We appreciate your insight.